Welcome everyone to Train Tuesday. I'm your host Jim Wiggins. So glad to have you on board. If you like the content that you see delivered here on a weekly basis, please do us a favor, like and subscribe to the channel. And while you're at it, hit the notification bell. That way you're notified every time a new video like this one drops into your feed. Well, today we're going to be talking about Athearn Genesis ICC Cabooses, specifically for the Denver Rio Grande, as well as some HO scale tank cars. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with some model railroad goodness, starting with the ICC Cabooses. So a little bit of background, this is probably the most recognizable icons of American railroading. Cabooses provided shelter for the rear end crew, and from the cupola or the bay window, depending on the caboose, crews could keep a lookout for shifting loads, damaged equipment, overheating axles. As rail cars, however, became larger in the late 1950s into the early 1960s, there was a real need for cabooses to have greater visibility for the crew. In the extended vision, or the wide vision caboose like you see here, the sides of the cupola projected beyond the side of the car body. Now, this model was introduced by the International Car Company and saw service on most U.S. railroads. The expanded cupola also allowed the crew to see past the top of the taller cars that became more prevalent after World War II. It also increased the roominess of the cupola area. Now, specifically, we're going to be offering these this time for Denver Rio Grande. And by the 1960s, the Rio Grande had a real caboose shortage. The railroad had always built its own cabooses previously, but currently, at this time, their shops were in the middle of upgrading their caboose fleet in order to satisfy new state and federal safety standards. Consequently, they ordered their first group of 15 wide vision cabooses from International Car. Now, for this run, we're going to be doing the first order of cabooses as well as a second order that came by in the mid 1970s. Now, we're going to be offering three different road numbers for that first 1960s run. We're going to start off with 1500. We're also going to have 1503. And of course, 1507. Now, these cars, besides that really cool Rio Grande paint scheme, are going to have some details that are specific for these three from the 1960s order. These cabooses will feature a trainline air whistle in DCC mode, so in order to have that, you're going to have a DCC layout as well as the sound-equipped car. However, physical features will include a firecracker-style antenna and rotating roller bearings. Now, as previously mentioned, we're also going to be offering a few from a later order that happened in the 1976. So in the mid 1970s, Rio Grande's coal loadings grew substantially, and this created the need for not only more locomotives, but more cabooses. The railroad placed an order for 10 more new wide vision cabooses with ICC. While like the 1966 order, there were some differences, like the elimination of roof walks, the addition of backup headlight for reverse moves, and an experimental air filtration system. We'll also offer two road numbers for the later 1976 era, including number 1517 as well as 1522. Now, these two cabooses from the 76 era, they will also feature a trainline air whistle in DCC mode. So again, if you want to take advantage of that, you're going to want to get the sound-equipped car with the Soundtracks decoder. Physical features, these are also going to have firecracker-style antennas. They will have rotating roller bearings. And remember that filtration system that we were talking about, it will have the ram air filter ventilation system plate. Something else that these cabooses will have that the 60s era did not have will be lit backup light in DCC mode, and customer installed non-functional marker lights are included separately. Now, like I was saying earlier, these are going to be available both as LED only as well as LED with sound. So let's talk about, first, we'll start talking about the LED light equipped versions, and then we'll talk about the sound versions. So these light only versions are going to be equipped with LEDs. That way they're going to run a long time. You won't have to worry about burning out bulbs and things of that nature. Um, they will have an onboard DCC lighting decoder. Now, what that means is it will operate both on DCC as well as analog DC, but the lighting functions are controllable in DCC. What that basically means is in DC mode, you'll have some lights, but if you have DCC, you can actually access those lighting features, turn them on and off. Various classes will feature single or dual roof markers or end mount marker lights. These are based on the prototype since these are Genesis and or Era. So keep in mind, not all cars will have marker lights. And the LED interior and marker lights are now brightness controlled. That is something that we did not have in previous versions. You, the customer, spoke and we listened. They now have that feature. Now, on top of the lights, you can also get the sound equipped cabooses. Let's talk about some of the features of the sound cabooses as well. So, in addition to all the lighting features, you get the sound features as well. You get the Soundtrack's sound car decoder, and you're going to have the air horn or train line air whistle as appropriate based on the prototype. The clickety clack to, mimic that jointed rail that was common back then. You'll also have the optional wheel flat spot sounds. Operating guys are going to be happy to know that there's a brake set release sounds, including retainers and brake squeal. There's also the big hole emergency brake application sound, handbrake tie down and release, and what's really cool, adjustable flange squeal. And here's something else that's really cool. Air, horn, and bell sounds work seamlessly with the Soundtrack's locomotive sound recorder. Now, these are supported in advanced consisting in DCC. That way, when you're using the caboose and the reverse move or shoving platform, instead of the bell and the horn from the locomotive sounding, it's actually coming from the caboose, just like the prototype. Full DCC functions are available when operated in DCC mode, and all functions are NMRA compatible in DCC mode. So there you have it. For complete details, select the link in the video description below. That'll take you right to the Athearn website, and you can see more details on the caboose that we are offering. So again, we've got 3 from the 1960s order, 2 from the 1970s order, and they're both available with just lights or lights and sound. You've got till Friday, July 26th to place your pre-orders on these. You don't want to get left empty-handed next year. Coming up next, we're going to go to Athearn. And for those guys that like to operate tank cars, today's your day. Now, of course, tank cars are specialized pieces of equipment. Care is taken to ensure that the tank contents are compatible with the tank car construction. Now, as a result of this specialization, tank cars have generally been one-way cars. Other cars, such as box cars, can easily be reloaded with other goods and sent for the return trip. Now, within the rail industry, however, tank cars are grouped by their type and not by the cargo that is carried. Now, this is the Athearn HO scale 62-foot tank car. These have been around for a number of years, but they're predominantly in the 1970s, 80s, 90s, and some of them are still out there, although not as prevalent as they once were about 30 years ago. Now, we're going to be offering these for modelers of the 1970s and 1980s. So let's talk about the roads that we're going to be offering. Now, the car that you see on your screen now, we are completely out of at Athearn. However, you can probably contact your favorite Athearn dealer, and there's a chance they might have one of these in stock. Now, let's talk about the roads that we're going to offer for pre-order. Starting at the very top, and this was one that was requested by many of you, it's the 1987 era Burlington Northern fuel tenders. Now, if you don't know, I'm going to give you a real basic answer as to what the fuel tender was. You can definitely go online and see more information to get into the weeds and get into the details of exactly how this system worked. But in the short vernacular of it all, These BN fuel tenders were used by BN to mitigate fuel stops on long haul intermodal and coal trains. Again, late 1980s era. Now, the fuel tender had a fuel transfer hose on both ends, and locomotives had to be similarly equipped. Now, case in point, with a brace of properly fitted locomotives, each locomotive had a float within its tank that would have a preset low fuel quantity and a trigger pump that would actually take fuel from the tender and pump it into the unit that had the low fuel warning. Once that fuel reached the desired set amount, it would shut that pump off and resume its course. Again, this is a very simple explanation of how the system worked, but there was a lot of work that had to be done to both the locomotives as well as these tenders. They were pretty much dedicated to set routes, and in the end, it was kind of a failed experiment, and they only did it for a few years. You can read more about it online as well as some of the many Burlington Northern books. But if you're a modeler of 1987 into the later 1980s, you might want to pick these up. These are really cool. If you're modeling the 1990s, even the 2000s, we would see these in Galesburg, Illinois, parked somewhere in the yard. You can always add these as an accessory. Now, the reporting marks for the fuel tenders were BNFT. Pretty much makes sense. Burlington Northern Fuel Tender. We're offering three different road numbers for these fuel tenders. The one that you see here is number 14, followed by 32 and 36, not seen here, but will be offered. And pretty much all of the cars that I'm going to show you here tonight are going to be available in three different road numbers. Coming up next, we have the 1980 era Pro Car. Their reporting marks are PROX, and this is car number 94435. Additionally, we're going to offer car numbers 94436 and 94438. At the bottom of the page, you'll see 1981 era Alberta Gas. Their reporting marks are AGCX, and this is car number 10077. We're also going to feature cars number 10138 and 10198. For this next set of cars, we're going to go back to the 1970s. So 1970s era modelers, take note. The first one we're going to start with is 1975. It's standard chlorine. Now its reporting marks are GATX, and this car number is 85087. We'll also offer car numbers 85088 as well as 85090. In the middle, you'll see a 1971 era car. This is for Packerland Packing Company. They too have the reporting marks, a GATX. This is car number 34014. We'll also offer car numbers 34015 and 34017. And then finally, we have 1972. This is the White House, not that White House, but the White House. Now, the reporting marks on this car are NATX, and the car that's pictured here is 28252. We're going to also offer car numbers 28254 and 28255. Now let's talk about the features of these cars. Again, these are Athearn. They're not going to have the same level of detail as a Genesis model, but if you're somebody that enjoys operations, there's enough detail to satisfy for what you see. So these will have separately applied top fittings, handrails, ladders, and brake wheel. Of course, the McHenry scale knuckle couplers are going to be body mounted. They'll feature machined metal wheels with RP25 contours. That means they'll operate on all brands of HO scale track. Of course, they're weighted for optimum performance, and they're accurately painted and printed for prototypical realism. These bodies are highly detailed and injection molded, and again, not Genesis, so you're not going to have all that brake detail or cut levers or things of that nature, but where the detail matters, where most people see it, it's all right there. These are fully assembled, ready for your layout, maybe just a little bit of weathering and they're ready to go. And the minimum radius on these cars is 22 inches. So there you have it. Operators, take note of these cars. You have got until Friday, July 26th to place your pre-orders. You don't want to be empty-handed on either one of these. Again, operators, the Athearn line is probably perfect for you. So go ahead and place your pre-orders with your dealer before Friday, July 26th. Well, that's all I've got for you on this Train Tuesday. Be sure to check back often. Every Tuesday, we come with a new Train Tuesday. Also, at the time of this recording, I am getting ready to go to the St. Louis RPM meet. It's going to be next weekend. If you would like to attend the show or learn more about the show, I've left the link to the show in the video description below. Athearn will be there. Myself, I will be there. And so if you do come out to the show, please bring some of your models. That's what it's all about. You can display your models or whatever you're working on, and stop by the Athearn booth and talk to me. We'll see what's going on in your modeling world. We're in the middle of summer now. Maybe you're taking some refuse in the cooler layout room. I hope you're getting a lot done on the layout. And before you know it, we'll be getting into some cooler temperatures and coming back to you live. So until next time, I hope everyone out there is doing some good modeling. Stay happy, be friendly to others, and above all, high greens. Take care.